開口上口下落口古名雲来不要実法不要不要実法不要不要実天門君小です。Please put your hands in gassho and poses. Ora ishora ishoku. 自信たし。願書とけます。発文書です。We'd like to recite a few verses. Please put your hands in gassho. Oh, my
beginningless greed, hate, and delusion. Through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. 画釈所蔵諸悪語海遊無視頓人知重心食い死傷症一切が今回参へナムキエ仏ナムキエオナムキエソキエ仏無常尊キエオリジン尊キエソアゴ尊キエ仏教キエオ教キエソ教 I take refuge in Buddha. May all beings embody the great way, resolving to awaken. I take refuge in Dharma. May all living beings deeply enter the sutras, wisdom like an ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May all beings support harmony in the community, free from hindrance. 直営仏当願主上大芸大道発無上意直営を当願主上人入教造知恵如海直営相当願主上通り大衆一切無限 Thank you. We'd like to offer a chanting of Makahanya Haramita Shingyo, the heart of great perfect wisdom sutra.
Maka hanya halmita
よ人アンニャラミタ自称剣を雲海空洞一切空薬者利子式ういくくういしきしき即税くく即税式重創業式薬無尿税シャリシゼショウソウショウムツクウジョウゾウゲンゼコクチュムシキムジュ創業式無限にいぜ真に無式証拠利息を無限界内し無意識界無明薬無明人内し無老死薬無老死人無苦終滅の無知薬無得意小と公募大サタエアンニャラミタコシムケゲムケゲコムクオンリーサイテンの無足業平安三世小仏へアンニャラミタコ徳はなくたら三脈三宝大高地アンニャラミタ帝大人種帝大名種税無常種税無労働種の上一細工真実高校説アンニャラミ収束説収圧やてやたらやてあらそうやてぼしそわかアンニャ信用将来マカハンニャラミタ信用不受する功徳は第四教主本師釈迦牟尼仏高僧上陽大師大僧上最大師に並びに東山海山独法周遊大王将二世時報周一大王将に供養し立て祭り無常仏家菩提を将軍数不して願わくは同じく主治をまどかにせんことを祈るところは玉王山総禅寺断心と各系家門繁栄尊長級諸祭少女諸縁吉祥ならんことをおじを三四四尊うさおこさおこじゃお Please put your hands in the shoe.
Now we'd like to offer the sutras for those who passed away in the month of May. ただいまより正直供養をさせていただきます。どうぞお手を合わせてお参りいただければと思います。Please place your hands together and send your thoughts and prayers to the families and friends who passed away.
開口上講義学校、公明運大、不要実法、不要実不要実法、検問組少々。
大神らにナムからたんのトラヤヤナムオリヤおりょきちちうらや富士里坊やおこさと坊やもこキャルニキャヤ ぎ恋願わくは信じして召喚を垂れたまえ。上気余り怒り通達し弱小にして国を含む。キャラいして世間を感ずればなお夢中の字のごとし。仰ぎ恋願わくは散歩して召喚を垂れたまえ。将来工芸当職傘珍衆を備え、現前の聖書を集め、大神だらにを不術集むるところの苦読は、総禅寺5月小月供養せる。俗名、エバタ、デュエイン、トシナリレイ、小月追善、供養の神に愛をて、エバタ家先祖代々諸将霊。俗名、藤波、道子霊、小月追善、供養の神に愛をて、藤波家並びに摂氏家、スーザン妹家先祖代々諸将霊。畠山重俊ジャクソン霊。正月追善供養の神に愛をて、畠山家先祖代々諸将霊。平田ラッセル光一霊。正月追善供養の神に愛をて、平田家先祖代々。平田家並びに摂氏家、論平田家先祖類代諸将霊。神田ハリ霊。正月追善供養の神に愛をて、神田家先祖代々諸将霊。前ら花江家霊正月追善供養の神に愛を手前だけ先祖代々諸将霊森田徹家徹霊正月追善供養の神に愛を手森田家先祖代々諸将霊村山和代霊正月追善供養の神に愛を手摂取家論村山家先祖類代諸将霊中立種高齢正月追善供養の神に愛をて中立家先祖代々諸将霊西村すすみ高齢正月追善供養の神に愛をて寿司家院西村家先祖代々諸将霊四白ハリ霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて四白家並びに寿司家堀江、高橋家先祖類代諸将霊。高橋ドリス霊、正月追善供養の神に愛をて。瀬司家マリエ、高橋家先祖代々諸将霊。東内一郎霊、正月追善供養の神に愛をて。瀬司家、民東内家先祖類代諸将霊。山口秀夫霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて山口家先祖代々諸将霊矢野和成霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて矢野家先祖代々諸将霊並びに摂氏家マリエ高橋家先祖代々諸将霊矢野美和子霊正月追並びに霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて矢野家並びに摂氏家マリエ高橋家先祖代々諸将霊有事総霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて有家先祖代々諸将霊ビッキー・ビクトリア・ルー・スチュワード霊正月追善供養の神に愛をて諸子家ルーク・スチュワード家先祖類代諸将霊おのおの各家総禅寺5月小月供養精霊にエコス。うして願わくは、生じの流れに処して理樹一人総会に輝き、ネアンの岸に越して競輪一人駅天によがらかに、あまねく世間を導いて、同じく角路に登らんことを、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、おー、 三四一四子孫うさもこさもこじゃおろ
Please put your hands in 合掌。ありがとうございます。どうぞ両手を合わせください。May this humble merit of reciting the sutras, offering the incense, flowers, sweets, fruits, our thoughts, and our presence and our time all be extended through our lives to our loved ones, our families, our friends, and to all those who passed away in the month of May, their families and friends, to all peoples, to all sentient beings. Namu Kie Butsu. Namu Kie Ho. Namu Kie So. はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you. Let me change this. There we go. All right. ありがとうございます。Thank you very much for joining us today. 皆さん、元気でしょうか? It's nice to see some of our familiar faces. Moira, good to see you. Thank you. And Yugen-san, as usual, thank you for joining us from Canada. And Judy, thank you for being with us, despite your, condition. Glad. And Masa-san, Maria-sensei, ありがとうございます. And Bill-san, I'm glad you're staying with touch with us from the Oli class in Long Beach. So it's wonderful. We have Shali here in a temple. I can see in one of the screens. I hope you can see our Shali. If this is a camera. Yes. Can you see her waving hand? Yes, thank you. It's great to see you. It's been a long time. And for us, where did they go? I have Diana, Doshin, and Dave from Angel City joining us. And I want to say thank you, especially this month, as I was away pretty much the whole half of this month. The reason why I was away was because of this trip, Soto Zen Buddhism North America office, which is also called Association of Soto Zen Buddhists, had planned year before. Every year we have a special teacher called Tokuhaf Kyoshi. Literal translation would be special dissemination teacher. That's a delegate of the head priest of Sotoshu, who gets sent over to the United States. And because of the pandemic, he wasn't able to travel. So I ended up being sent over to different centers as a substitute teacher. So that's how I ended up going to many different centers, starting off from New York Zen Center and Village Zendo, 3 temples in Manhattan, New York, 1 temple in Washington, and another temple in Oregon, and then came back. Then again, I went out to North America to visit San Francisco Zen Center, then Ocean Gate Zen Center in Santa Cruz, then up to Vallejo Zen Center, then finally, then to Sonoma Zen Center, then finally at Green Gulch, part of San Francisco Zen Center. Some of them are big communities, some of them relatively small. But what I sensed commonly from visiting all these communities was that everybody's been sort of going through challenges through this pandemic, just like us. And also, they are also sort of in a phase of transition, starting to think of who is going to take over the temple. Now, the founder generation is giving in, sort of having a new generation taking over the temple. So, in that sense, Sozenji's case was happened with Reverend Tom Cry's passing, and was definitely not easy for us. But in one way or another, this is something all Zen communities are facing. And that was another thing I observed. Yet they're trying to come back. So I see this momentum. They're picking up again. The purpose of this visit was to emphasize, to announce the 100th anniversary of Soto Zen mission in North America, and to share our hope that we celebrate this occasion together. It coincides with Sozenji's 50th anniversary, and sort of in hope to build more connection and friendship. So that was the purpose of my visit. And I hope I can share this talk that I shared. It's a little bit longer, and I hope you'll bear with me so that I can also include Sozenji as part of the tour, if that's okay. And I'll start with this. Instead of just talking, I want to share with some visual aid. Do you recognize this symbol? Yes. Yes. What is this? Okay. Dave? Yeah, this is a crest of Soto shoe, right? Yes. So there are interesting thing. There are two crests. One is Dogen's temple, Eiheiji, and another is Keizan Zenji's temple, Sojiji. Do you know which one is Eiheiji symbol? No. Okay. All right. I'm just looking at the screen here too. So this is Eiheiji symbol, Dogen's spirit. And this is Sojiji head temple, it's Keizan Zenji's temple. An interesting thing in Sotoshi is we have these two symbols, not one. Right around the time of my grandfather, I remember there was a movement. There was a nonprofit organization called Bukkyo Dendo Kyokai. So it's a nonprofit organization where they started to translate the teaching of Shakyamuni Buddhas into modern Japanese. And there was a movement around that time when they wanted to go back to the original teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. My grandfather was among such people. I think that was a movement triggered by a little deterioration of the systems or traditions. People are kind of losing some interest. So they wanted to come back to something that's alive. And that was a movement. When I came to the United States and I learned about all the Zen teachers, but including, I guess, Kurai Sensei, Osada Sensei, along with Suzuki Roshi, Maizumi Roshi, who each embody this sort of a genuine form of Buddhist practice with the members at the time. Well, it's a story in the 50s and 60s. So I'm sure there was sort of a heat, right? People were all for it. So it didn't sound such a coincidence that there was a movement in Japan and people found a whole new open wide space here in the United States where they could embody this movement. Dogen Zenji was also such a person who wanted to embody this pure teaching. So he went to Song Dynasty China, learned this teaching from Rujin Nyojo Zenji, and came back. Pure teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha. And he never called this Zen, let alone Soto Zen. It was the pure teaching, the words of Shakyamuni Buddha. We call this Shobo no Buppo, Shoden no Buppo, Shoden no Buppo, correctly transmitted teachings. And this teaching is not always words. It's manifesting through person's character formation, personalities. demeanors, community. So it embodies in many different ways. So that's the spirit of this Dogen Zenji's temple. Integrity of practitioners, strict adherence to the tradition, ancestors' way. So that's this. Now, what about Keizan Zenji's spirit? When Keizan Zenji appeared in fourth generation down from Dogen Zenji, they finally started to call this school Soto Zen, Soto Shu, because then if Dogen Zenji was the one who brought the teaching from China, then embodied this teaching. Keizan Zenji is the one who came relatively from a common background. If Dogen was from aristocracy or in a high-ranking officials family, Keizan was from like us, most of us who come from a regular household, then trained, used more words that's relatable to us. He trained students, many students, who became excellent teachers. And because of this, Soto Shu spread to all across Japan. So we often say we can compare Dogen Zenji to like a strict father figure, like this is it. Keizan Zenji is a bit more like a mother-like figure who embraces difference, diversity. When Soto Zen was spreading in Japan in 1500s, 1500s, there had already been traditions. There had already been traditions like Shingon school or Pyolan school. I want to share just another thing. This is a quiz, if you can answer. This is a statue of the Buddha, and it's not Shakyamuni Buddha. Can you guess? Oh, can you guess from the image? Maybe I make it bigger with this. You can see. Here you go. Oh, sorry. How did that happen? Here you go. All right. The clue is that he's holding a container, small pot. This has a medicine in it. So it's a medicine Buddha. Onkorokoro sendari mato gisoaka, onkorokoro sendari mato gisoaka. It's a mantra that I chanted growing up. This is the main image of the temple that I grew up in. In Soto Zen school, if you look at the sutra book carefully, as you chant sutra or practice, dedicate to practice, we dedicate our sutra chanting to Shakyamuni Buddha, Dogen Zenji, Keizan Zenji. But right after Shakyamuni Buddha, there's a big bracket. And whatever image you are enshrining in your community, in your temple. So that's, I say, it's Keizan's spirit. So Medicine Buddha was enshrined, our temple was originally built in 700s, mid 700s, as esoteric Buddhist temple. Then Soto Zen came and became a Soto Zen school. So at that point, we started to pay respect to Dogen Keizan and Shakyamuni Buddha. But we will never forget Medicine Buddha. I have one more question. Can you tell what this Buddha is? This is a question. Shally? No? If you go to OCBC or Nishi Honganji, you probably find this statue. Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha. Namu Amidabutsu, Namu Amidabutsu, Namman Dabutsu, Namman Dabutsu. Right in front of the temple property that I was raised was a pond called the Pond of Amitabha. So every time I go out to the community school, there's a pond right there. And then we didn't have a statue, but the pond represented Amitabha Buddha. So we put our hands together, say Namu Amidabutsu, Namu Amidabutsu. So there's that. Then there's another statue. I wonder if you can tell. This is a quiz. Does anybody know? I'm sure. It's called Dainichi Nyorai, main image of Shingon school. Mahavairochana, Vairochana Buddha, Dainichi Nyorai. I didn't have this statue in the temple, but in one of the community halls that I went to usually to dedicate sutras, there was this main image. So we pay respect to Dainichi Nyorai. And then on the other hand, we have such images as this. I'm sure you've seen this kind of statues, no? Yes, have you seen this? Okay. It's usually standing at the gate as a Dharma guardian, guardian of Buddha Dharma. Kongo Rikishi. So I always have to explain this. If you have to come to Zenshuji and look at Toho Sensei, because he's an American football player. He's a bit like this. So there are some monks who's like really strong and macho. Yeah. And then we have the founder of Shingon School, who's called Kukai. Not very well known in the United States, but Kukai was always enshrined in the temple. Many temples of Soto Zen School has Kukai. So you can see the item. This is a special item. It's used in the Shingon tradition. Then we have this kind of image, statues all around in town and village. Have you seen this kind of things? Fox? Foxes are messengers of Dakini, the goddess, who's another guardian of Buddha Dharma, and they are everywhere. I grew up surrounded by the statue of fox, and at night when you're using a flashlight and you come across the statue of this, it's really creepy. So, this Dakini, foxes are enshrined in one of the Sotoshu's training temples called Toyokawa Inari. It's one of the registered training temple. Until recently it was. Now I think they got stopped. And then inside this training temple is a shrine where they enshrine the Dakini, the goddess. And right next to is a temple where they enshrine Shakyamuni Buddha, Dogen, Keizan. Side by side, they're in the same property, and they dedicate the sutras equally. The image of Dakini was just a pictures like this. So you see the fox over here. Dakini used to be a wicked, hungry ogre, female ogre, who eats human flesh in Hindu tradition. It was a really vicious creature, and then converted to Buddhism, then became that Dharma guardians. So there's something about this kind of story. There's another female goddess here, Sarasvati, Benzaiten. We always enshrine them in the lotus pond. That's another thing. Now, of course, we have, can you tell what this is? Hi. Ojizo-sama desu. Kushite ga areba, ojizo-sama. So if I'm sure you can, if you go to Miyaken, you'll find this on the street. People usually put this when there's a traffic accident, to sort of console the spirits. But often we have this as guardians of children. They're often like children. That's why I named Shuko-san a certain name representing Ojizo-sama, because he is really good with kids. So that Shuko-san, in a sense, is Ojizo-sama. When I was commuting at school, it took me about 40 minutes on foot. And every 10 minutes, you come across Ojizo-sama. So when you're first, second grade, your grandparents tell you to bow, put your hands together, and pay respect. And we did, up until we turned 12 or 13. And we stopped doing it because we're too cool to do it. So such is the images we grow up with. And I'm not talking about this from academic standpoint. And we have main images like Kannon-sama, Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara, representation of compassion, kindness. And then we also have somebody like this, Fudo Myo, fierce looking. But again, he's another embodiment of Vairochana Buddha. So it's something to think about. We take different forms and expression when we express wisdom. These are two images often we see in a meditation hall. One on top of the, let's see. This one is a Manjushri wisdom, Bodhisattva of wisdom. And this is called Samantabhadra, Fugen Bosatsu of activity. Fugen Bosatsu appears in the Lotus Sutra as one who's committed to awakening women. So in Japan, women have a lot of faith in, there's a faith culture in Samantabhadra in Japan. Finally, we have this kind of image too, Ashura, who used to be a wicked fighter. His specialty was fighting, picking up fight everywhere, and later became the guardian of Buddha Dharma. This kind of image kind of is consoling because we're teenagers. We're not happy growing up in a temple. And we're not happy about ourselves being unhappy about growing up in the temple. And when I see this kind of image, oh, this guy used to be a bad guy. Now he's a guardian of the temple. Okay, maybe I could fit in that category. So these are the kind of images. We have images of non-humans, animals, different creatures. That's the diversity. That's the diverse expression we have growing up in a temple. You see these images everywhere. Yes. When we chant sutras and we dedicate this to all Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, this is the image that kind of runs through my mind. Important thing is that we're not talking about one single Buddha, not singular. It's always plural, always multiple. There are always multiple dimensions, just like Sangha members have different personalities. Some are agreeable, some are not so agreeable, but it's all okay. We have diverse expressions, diverse communities of all different ethnic, racial, linguistic backgrounds, but it's all a-okay. And that's the spirit of Keizan Zenji, AH Monastery. Integrity of practitioner, ability to accommodate difference, diversity. These two are the spirits of Soto Shu. If you adhere to just one, then you start to kind of get off the track of Soto Shu. Sozenji Temple is equally the same. One last bodhisattva that I want to express, shall introduce you, is this. There you go. This is, how many of you know this character? Oh, wonderful. Okay. And he's called Ampama. Ampama, yes. Ampama. It's a small children's show. If you grow up in Japan, it's like Sesame Street in the United States. You cannot grow up without watching this. So Ampaman is the main character. And his head is actually bread. It's with a sweet bean paste in it. So it's a sweet. So you can compare it to like a chocolate croissant. And you have all the characters here. This guy is good-hearted, but a little bit short-tempered. This guy over here is pretty cool-headed. And so these are all different characters. And there's a mischievous one, a couple of them. They do all kind of cause troubles. They are also in the picture as well. What Ampaman does, he flies, he can actually fly, although he's a rat. He can fly around. Whenever he finds someone in trouble, he just casually goes straight to the person and reaches out to help. And if he finds someone who's hungry, he takes out a portion of his head and here you go, you can have this. I was shocked when I saw this first. And he eats it. And then his friends eat it. But whenever he does this, he loses power because he's giving out his resource. So he loses power and he gets defeated. He gets defeated. The creator of this character, the animation, Mr. Takashi Yanase, he's a creator, said when Ampaman gives out a portion of his head, he loses his power and he can't really win because he's lacking what he needs. Now, when Mr. Yanase derived this character from bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, Buddhas, he had a very interesting definition of justice. which is a big word in the United States. We have a word justice in such diverse communities like the United States. I just became Americans as well, so I'm contemplating on this word carefully here. Now, when you execute, when you do justice, you have to know that you could get hurt. You could get hurt. Then you do justice still. According to Mr. Yanase, justice, his definition is interesting. Justice is something where it's not where a superhero can defeat all villains with superpowers. According to him, justice is something where most ordinary person, knowing they might get hurt, will still practice, commit to. And when they commit to it, it's inevitable that they get hurt, they get defeated, they burn out, they get overwhelmed. It's inevitable. Yet, do not get bothered by this. Do not mind this. So that's the justice Mr. Yanase explains. So Anpanman, as you see, it's a children's show. And he goes right to the person who's in trouble and so casually gives out a portion of his head. There's not a slightest hesitation about his action, because he couldn't help. It was not because it was a role he was assigned to play. It was his mission. Well, that's what you're signed up for, what you're supposed to do. He couldn't help it but reach out. So that's the body mind, the Buddha's mind. He couldn't help it. For Anpanman, helping out people is not his job. It's his life itself. See, one thing that I was sharing was we commit ourselves to the temple community, giving out a portion of our time with the families, portion of our time to do something else, our hobby. Well, here we are, we're committed. Japanese people are known for its dedication, hardworking, yes, but sometimes we are also described as a little bit workaholic, a little bit too much. Sometimes we are described with this word, jikogise, self-sacrifice. I think it tends to happen in the temple community or non-profit community, jikogise. However, Mr. Takashi Yanase says Anpanman's action is not a self-sacrifice. You might remember the Thich Nhat Hanh's message about the monk who burned himself in protest of the Vietnam War. It's the same reason. It's not a self-sacrifice, because when he takes out a portion of his head, there's not that's the hesitation. There's not that moment of hesitation, meaning he's not losing anything. Buddhist actions, Bodhisattva action is not self-sacrifice. It's something very important to remember for all of us. However beautiful it might be, however praised it might be, if it's a self-sacrifice, it's still happening in a realm of duality. You're here, somebody else, you're giving it to somebody. And it creates more suffering, more pains, more ignorance. Because as long as it's a self-sacrifice, it's the act that generates this division, us against them. So when you watch Anpanman's show carefully, it's a children's show, of course. So it will never give you an impression to the children that Anpanman's sacrificing anything. He's doing it just as a matter of fact. It's just this ordinary thing he does. It casually takes out a portion of his head and give it to the person. Because that moment, nothing really is missing. And that's why children don't watch Anpanman as a show of self-sacrifice. It's just an act of giving. And there's not a slightest sign of sacrifice there. So in that sense, Mr. Yanase depicts Anpanman as a role model of Avalokiteshvara, or bodhisattvas. that we aspire to. We have a word, let me see, this is one last thing. We have a word in Japanese called kakugo. I'm sorry, it's in kanji letters. Kakugo. Do you know this word? Kakugo shimasu. Kakugo shimasu. Usually I translate this as I'll make up my mind. I'm determined to do something. But if you look at these two letters carefully, these two letters have the exact same meaning, which is to awaken, realize. Awaken, realize. Awaken, awaken. That's what the kakugo has as a nuance. Kakugo, determination without awakening, can create more division, can possibly split us, can create more suffering. Determination with awakening is supposed to liberate us, keeps us free. And that's what Anpanman represents. He helps people so free. He's not bound, leashed by anything. And of course, when he hurts his head, he loses portion of his head, he loses. But rest assured, I have to tell this part of the story. When he's in trouble, there's a person called Uncle Jam, Jamo Oji-san. There's a Batako-san. It's like a sister-like figure. They create a new head. So Anpanman can replace his head. And in the end, the story ends well. So that's the thing. Now I'd like to share Reverend Ikera's message was already over yesterday. On Thursday. But this is a little premise for the message he was going to share. This is only a portion of his message, Doshin-san, you heard. So here's Reverend Ikera, who is going to be the delegate of Sotoshu's message. Can you wish happiness to those who drop bombs in your town? Can you wish happiness to those who threaten the life of your family? Can you forgive those who hurt your most beloved child and wish happiness to them? There's no way. Yet, we recite the verse, may this merit extend universally to all. And when we say all, we mean all, including the ones we hate, the ones who hate us, the ones whom we cannot possibly forgive. When we say universally to all, it includes all such people. We encounter difficult times, hardships of the cold weather, Dogen says. It's something that's beyond our power, but it's not the cold that affects us. How we live our life is not a matter of if there is the cold weather or not. It's a matter of ourselves. What you bear on your shoulders would not make you a fool. What you bear on your shoulders would never block your path. Fear your own mind that wants to make you a fool. Fear your own mind that wants to stop this walk on your path. This last phrase was something Reverend Ikeda was telling himself when his youngest daughter had her eyes injured and doctor gave them the diagnosis that she would go blind completely. Fortunately, she recovered, but during those weeks when they were not struggling with uncertainty, he said he dragged himself to the practice and kept telling himself this word. So Reverend Ikeda was going through this while he was preparing for this speech, so it's a fairly recent event. I'd like to conclude today's talk with the head priest message from Shumucho Sotoshu, because these two messages, mine and Ikeda Sensei's message, is a little premise for this message. A message from the head priest of Sotoshu in 2022. We are now faced with many difficulties and uncertainties, and our way of life is being questioned. The global spread of novel coronavirus has resulted in the loss of many precious lives, and people are in deep turmoil. International conflicts and civil wars, social problems such as poverty, discrimination, inequality, bullying, and incidents that take lives as well as natural disasters and global environmental changes that have been occurring frequently in recent years, have brought about a crisis of survival for us all. What kind of way of life should we, who live by the teachings of the one Buddha and two founders, strive for? The Buddha taught us to live with wisdom and compassion. Wisdom is the ability to realize the truth of life, which is animated by all things. Compassion is the ability to eliminate suffering and lead people to peace of mind with a heart of infinite empathy. With wisdom and compassion, we can be tolerant and accept each other's different standpoints. Keizan Zenji taught us to accept the sorrows and sufferings of others as if they were our own and to live in harmony with one another. This year, let us continue to deepen our human relationships by sharing, supporting, and caring for one another with cooperation, one of the Bodhisattva's four embracing actions. Dogen Zenji stated, although this Dharma is abundantly present in each person, it isn't manifested without practice. In this way, he admonished us to carefully apply these teachings to our daily lives. Let us all join hands with the Buddha and proceed with the practice of a bodhisattva by being familiar with Zazen and praying together to live peacefully so that no one in the world is left behind. In 2024, the 700th anniversary of Keizan Jokin Zenji, the founder of Daihonzan Sozenji, will be celebrated. I hope that you will appreciate this precious opportunity to experience this Dharma connection and that you will deepen your faith together with us. Please put your hands in Gassho. Let's conclude. Homage to Shakyamuni Buddha. Homage to the great ancestor Joyo Daishi Dogen Zenji. Homage to the eminent ancestor Josai Daishi Keizan Zenji. Gassho. April 1st, 2022. Ishizuki Shuko, head priest of the Soto Shu. I'd like to conclude this with an echo, universal echo. Please put your hands in Gassho one more time. 願わくはこの功徳をもってあまねく一切に及ぼし、我らと市場と皆共に仏道を上善こと。May the Spirit universally extend to all, so that we together with all beings realize the Buddha way. Please follow me. 南無帰依仏。南無帰依法。南無帰依僧。はい、ありがとうございました。Thank you very much for your attention. Especially, let me